of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I probably silenced my phone. That was not good timing.
All right. Has council had the opportunity to review the meeting minutes of November 19th? If so, I'll ask for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
Motion from Robin, second from Becky. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Any changes to this evening's agenda? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the set agenda.
I'll make a motion we approve the set agenda.
Motion from Becky, second from Rick. Those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Guests in open forum. Tonight we have a presentation from Michaela, who is going to do a short presentation on the Girl Scouts robotics presentation she did for the Gold Star Award. Is that correct? Gold Award. Gold Award. All right, come on up to the podium.
You sure? Okay. Okay. So I'm Michaela Huffs. I'm a Girl Scout senior in Troop 159, and I'm also part of the Becker Robotics team, CIS 4607. And I've been working on my Gold Award called Coding for Cookies. And Coding for Cookies was an initiative started on my robotics team about 3 years ago by my teammate and I, and she approached me with an idea that would help spread STEM education to young women. We both recognize the gap within STEM education and STEM careers, not only like within our robotics teams that we've seen through FRC, but in all robotics careers, that there's just a lesser amount of women in these jobs. And we wanted to do something that would close this gap. We recognized that we wanted to invite Becker Girl Scout troops of all ages into our robotics shop to teach them about robotics. And she had me help out with this because she knew that I was in Girl Scouts and that I could help her connect to Girl Scout troops. So we worked together to design a program that would introduce Girl Scouts to all aspects of FRC robotics. In each session where we had Girl Scouts come to our robotics facility, we taught them how to code using FLL Lego robots. They also got the opportunity to learn about all aspects and parts of an FTC robot and got the opportunity to drive an FTC robot. And at the end of each session, we brought them into our robotics shop where we actually built a robot for that year, and they got to see our robot, our big high school competition robot in action. Each girl who attended a session earned a robotics badge for their age level. And these sessions came to be called Coding for Cookies sessions. Throughout the course of almost 2 years, we were able to teach over 100 Girl Scouts in Becker and Big Lake Girl Scout troops because of Coding for Cookies. After my teammate graduated, I took the lead of this project and ensured that my robotics team would continue teaching Girl Scouts and hosting Coding for Cookies sessions. With the help of my teammates, I started creating robotics kits. And these kits contained all the materials needed to host a Coding for Cookies session. Originally, our intention was to lend these kits to other robotics teams so they could hold sessions in their communities and teach more Girl Scouts in their communities. We successfully borrowed a kit to another team, and Coding for Cookies started to reach past our small community. In hopes to continue spreading Coding for Cookies beyond Becker, I made expanding this initiative my Girl Scout Gold Award. I have been able to work with the Girl Scout Council, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Lakes, and Pines to host 2 sessions that were organized by the council. This allowed Girl Scouts from all over to sign up for these sessions, and my team had the privilege of teaching these Girl Scouts. I also trained 2 Girl Scout Council members on how to run a Coding for Cookies session and utilize all materials in a robotics kit. After these trainings and council monitored sessions, the Girl Scout Council took the robotics kit to their Duluth office. They will use this kit to create an on-the-go badge opportunity. This allows Girl Scout troops from all over Minnesota to sign up for a Coding for Cookies session. Then the Girl Scout Council members will go to the troops who registered for sessions and host a Coding for Cookies session for them using the detailed instructions our team gave to them and the materials in the robotics kit that we lent to them. My team and I will stay in contact with the Girl Scout Council in case any repairs or check-ins are needed for the robotics kit to make sure that they're working properly. This relationship with the Girl Scout Council through my Gold Award has allowed for more Girl Scouts to gain STEM education with the goal of including more women in robotics and STEM careers all over the state and outside of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. That was it's a great project. Yeah.
Thank you.
Very helpful. Rick, you were able to attend, were you? Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
it was
that
it
was-
was great. I got to attend both. You did a train the trainer session first. So like you mentioned, you had trained. I was a gal from St. Cloud and a gal from the Duluth area, to where they would go back and train others, or eventually be able to go back and train others. So, so basically, girls all around the state will be getting their badges, and you design the curriculum that they'll be following to get these badges.
That's pretty cool.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else for guests in open forum? Seeing none, we'll move into committee reports. Budget and Finance.
Budget and Finance met on November 21st. We covered all the financials as we normally do, and everything looks as expected. We reviewed where our ARPA funds were spent, and we talked about some transfers and reserves. And that was about it.
Okay, how about the Planning Commission?
Planning Commission, we met just before Thanksgiving, Monday, November 25th. One of the main things we discussed, we had some discussion on the, as most of us probably heard, the new cannabis laws taking effect on the first of the year here. And so we started with some discussion there. A lot of our discussion that we had on that night pertained to the number of you can we'll say the cannabis shops that are applied to the new law, so not the existing ones that we've talked about with the low potency gummies or whatever, but the new stuff that's coming in on January 1st is to be able to, we do have the ability to limit the number of shops, and we talked about some examples of, I know like in Oklahoma came up as an example of one where they didn't limit it, and you would see these towns of 2,000 have like 6, 7, 8 shops, and then they would all go bust, and then they all just kind of sit there. And so we a lot of discussion around that. So there is going to be a full public hearing, which is going to be at the December 30th Planning Commission meeting, and that's going to be for all of the. It's going to be for the proposed cannabis rules that everybody's going to, well, we'll do them for Becker, but all the cities will be going through this because it does go into effect January 1st is when the new law comes in. So, so that will be one, I know we definitely want to let everybody know about that. December 30th will be public hearing for that. So we didn't have discussion on all of it. It was just more or less, we were talking about the shops and kind of some of the process and that, so.
We also talked about the zoning.
Yeah, a little bit about zoning too, and far as, the different types of, cause there's everything from a grow operation, which, would be more agricultural. So, that would be more for ag zoning, and then you have like the commercial where you walk in and purchase stuff. So the, where those facilities will fall in. So, yeah, that's, part of that discussion too, so. It's a lot of stuff that's being put on us, and of course, the state is relatively vague on some of it still, so definitely more to come on that, but definitely folks will want to be aware of the meeting coming up on the 30th of December. We also talked briefly about just the parkland dedication, and then also we open planning commission seat, one for first of the year here. And so the applications, I believe, are open right now. Okay, yep, so if Music for that. Do we know when this closed, by chance? Okay, so, get it in there this week, we know that. If that's something you considered, serving on, that's about it.
How about golf?
Golf, in golf, we met last Tuesday. We went over the year financials, and we're doing better than budget. We have it's about a $50,000 increase over last year on cash flow. So it's looking pretty good. We discussed the phase 2 on the cart paths. Phase 1 was done this year. Phase 2 will be put out for bids. And that's it.
All right. Police Department City Hall update.
The interior walls for the police department, side walls are up for the most part. The brickwork continues. The building is tented on 2 sides, so the brickwork continues. We're waiting for the decking over the new lobby area. Once that gets done, they can pour the concrete floor, and then the work can start inside after that. And we have a progress meeting this Thursday.
All right. Any reports, any committees that we missed? Okay. Moving to board committee and consultant reports, the Becker Business Park Grant Closeout. Ms. Franz.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to present a summary of the Becker Business Park Infrastructure Construction Project. Receives state special appropriation funding of $20.5 million via a 2-phase grant from DEED. The first phase was for projects 1 and 2, which were the municipal well field and the County Road 53 utilities, and that had to fund an amount of $9.6 million. The second phase was for project 3 and 4, which were pump station improvements and the County Road 53 trunk water main, and that had to fund an amount of $10.9 million. Becker successfully pursued additional grants from the Community Energy Transition, or CET, as well as Sherburne County, and we collaborated with Sherburne County to seek additional grant funding from the State Transportation Fund. As the project wraps up, the city will utilize $21.9 million of grant funding on this infrastructure. The final billing for DEED funding was submitted on the 20th of November, and I am very happy to say that the final payment of that grant came into our bank this morning. So it's nice to wrap that up. When we started the project, we had an anticipated cost with contingency of $24.6 million. And the actuals that we have spent on this project to date is $23.8 million. So we have incurred a little bit less than what we anticipated at the beginning of the project. And I'm also happy to say that we did not need to go out and do any interim borrowing to cash flow this project. If we think back to 2020 and 2021, we were quite concerned about the turnaround time that it would take to get reimbursed from the state. And we did not need to go out and borrow money in order to complete the projects. The state's reimbursement timing was excellent. An overview of the different grant funding. You can see we talked about project 1 and 2 and project 3 and 4 being split. Of the $20.5 million of the initial DEED grant with the state appropriation, we will utilize $20.3 million. Some of that money is unspent on projects 3 and 4 because we determined that we wanted to purchase the land outside of the grant, so it would be unencumbered by state regulations of purchasing land with grant funding. So if you look at the total grant funding there, internally we are have funded $1.882 million for a total on the project. Internal funding details, you can see just some of the different things that were unfunded by grants that we have funded ourselves. And some of it, as I mentioned, were intentional because we did not want land to be encumbered by being purchased through a grant. So in total, our cost internally that was not within the grant scope or that we intentionally excluded is 7.9 million of the total project spend. And as we mentioned at the beginning, it was anticipated that we would have some internal funding for the project, and we have been funding that a little bit every year as we've gone. In 2021, we did fund the match that was required initially on projects 1 and 2 from the initial grant. In 2022, we funded some of the additional engineering work that was not covered within the CET grant. And in 2023, we funded from future improvements for that land that we decided to exclude from the grant. What we're anticipating as we approach the end of this year is that we will transfer funds to cover the remaining balance that we need to fund on the project. So that grant coverage covering 92.1% of the infrastructure project, we will bring forward at the end of the year with our normal transfer requests process to cover the additional money. And that money will come from the trunk fund where we receive assessments for infrastructure work. So it will be covered in that manner. So over the last 4 years, the city of Becker was able to utilize the state special appropriation deed grant as well as several other grants totaling 21.9 million to build 23.8 million of infrastructure in the business park. So I think it's overall a great story to tell. Internal funding of 1.9 million to help us really make some foundational changes to replacing that lost tax base that we're seeing as Shareco decommissions their plant. So I think it's a great story, and you will see one more request come forward tonight for the purchase of another piece of land related to this project. We're going to, Phil will be bringing that forward. We want to purchase the plot of land where we built a lot of the infrastructure on from Excel. So that will get rolled into this project at the end of the year as well. So if you have any questions, I'll be willing to hopefully answer them.
Just a comment. You know, we like current council, past councils, current administrator, staff, previous, Greg Brzezinski, we think how many times we, when they started beating the drum about potentially closing, the Sherco units, and when it went, it was always rumored for a while, but, when it really looked like it, there was gonna be some reality to this. And, it's, how many times do we go to St. Paul and we'd have, meetings where it was just like, we kept beating the drums, like, you can't forget about the whole cities. If you're gonna close these early, you cannot forget about the whole cities. And it was just over and over and over, and, dozens of times we were down in St. Paul. And, just all the staff hours, everything that went into this, and this and the other stuff, and this was the fruits of one of that, I guess. This is, so how many, how many times we came back from St. Paul, and it was just like, it just seemed like, is this ever gonna amount to anything? It's like, we're down here all the time, and then to finally, see something like this come through, it's a great story for the city, for taxpayers, for the city of Becker. We got $1.9 million that city taxpayers contributed on $24 million of infrastructure. That is the results of all that. And so just a, tip of the cap to, the many staff hours, that were put into, to this project for years, that resulted, and even, and before that, and then just current, with going through all that, funding, when we were, okay, just being able to stay on top of that, with the finance department, staying on top of that, just getting that stuff submitted, make sure it got, just all that work, so we didn't have to do that short-term borrowing, and there was a ton of work went into this, so just tip of the cap to everybody here.
Yeah, our resiliency to keep going, because there was nobody in our corner. It felt like everybody was just always downgrading it. So just for us to keep going, we paved the path for the Coalition of Utility Cities, for those that are going to be coming, after us with some of the aspects. But this return on investment is magnificent.
Yeah, I think it's a great story too. So thank you.
Thanks. All right, long duration energy storage battery sewer agreement. Mr. Knutson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I had to pace myself. I got a few things on the agenda, so.
You got $24 million in the save us here too? Is that-
I don't know that we want to catch our breath a little bit, so before I get started, I do, Randy Sabart with SDH, our consulting engineer, is here as well. He was instrumental in obviously what we did with that project, and we have a few things going forward again. So Randy, thank you for keeping us sane here, and finance team, thank you for keeping us on track with what we were spending, what we were supposed to spend, and keeping us within our budget, so.
And thanks for coding them, phase 1, 2, and 3 for us to understand. That
We
was
were
nice.
trying to follow the bouncing ball.
Yep.
I mean, it took us a while to get there, but I think we did all right once we caught the bus. So, you know, we always said that, what are we gonna do if we actually catch this thing? And we did, and happy to be a small part of that, and staff did a good job, and you guys supported us well, so we appreciate that. So all around, I think it was a great team effort, so. Like the mayor said, in front of you tonight, we've got a proposal to work with XL Energy. This kind of falls in line with some of their transitions. So as the large-scale solar has been proposed and coming online, the consistency or the base load power goes offline. So that what they're trying to do is figure out, what do we do when the sun is shining and we don't need all that power? Where is it going to go? They're proposing, and you heard the proposal from XL, to store that 100-hour duration batteries. There's a pilot program that actually they broke ground on, I believe, in November, to put that in place. But with that, and to store these batteries, there's also going to be some backwash from those batteries, how the process works, and they've got to discharge that. That water, while it's not horrible water, it can't go into the ground, it can't go directly into a stream, so it's got to come to us as the likely source, or they're going to have to truck it someplace else. So we've been back and forth with XL in looking at their overall water. We've reviewed the agreement. We met with PCA when we first started looking at this, because we wanted to treat this stream independently. We didn't want it to flow into their normal domestic discharge, so we have a way of monitoring it. So what they say they're gonna send us is what they're actually sending us, and we'll be able to meter that and bill them appropriately for that. It'll be similar to leachate, except it'll be coming directly piped to us, so it won't be trucked to us in this scenario. So the agreement that we put forth, or that we've negotiated, is for an initial 5-year term. The reason we put a 5-year term on that, it runs concurrent with our current permit for our discharge. And it gives us an opportunity to review that, if there's any changes to our permit, so we can go back to them and make those appropriate changes. The one thing that we specifically called out that legal has given us support on is that if they're in violation and they choose not to remedy the violation, we can shut them down at any time. So it puts the city in a very comfortable spot. Both XL and the city are very comfortable with this. I think we've gone through 3 iterations of this agreement. Like I said, engineering was heavily involved from the start, as was legal, giving it the review, and have supported this agreement. So there's no charge for this service. For infrastructure for this. It's a revenue stream that will come forth through the city. The plan from XL is to bring this online towards the end, Q4 of 2025. So as we gear up for budgets for next year, for 2026, we'll look to add this as a revenue stream. We may have a little sample revenue coming in the end of next year, but we didn't want to put it into our utility revenue budget right now to skew some of the numbers coming through. So with that, I'm trying to give you a decent recap on that, but with that, I'll stand for any questions. Otherwise, we're looking to move on resolution 24-102.
What's in the water that we don't want to put it with our domestic?
The water that comes through phosphorus is one of phosphorus was one of the components.
There's softness, they're taking out hardness, that kind of thing, reverse osmosis. So it's all that filter backwash from that comes out. So what Phil's referencing is we want to make sure it stayed as an industrial stream. It'll still technically flow through the domestic side, and it'll still treat it on the domestic wastewater side, but we just want to make sure that it's completely separate. Not loud enough, want me to talk louder? So it'll still technically go through the domestic side, it'll go through the domestic sewer. What we want to be careful with is we want to make sure we have a separate agreement, kind of based on our discussions with PCA, that makes sure we're monitoring any discharge that is not a standard residential flow. So they have to meter it. We will collect that information from them, bill them accordingly. But it's, they're basically trying to clean the water up enough so that it can be replenish these batteries is what it's for, so.
How would we isolate it? If it's gonna come in with other flow, how would we say, well, this, you know, if we were to have an issue, how would we say, oh, well, it was the Excel?
Shut the valve down. It's a separate line that would come in.
But is there testing prior to?
They test prior to that, so it'll come into the flow. We'll just upstream, we'll just shut it down.
Yep.
There's a valve that has to be placed to our standards, the same as the flow meters and everything. We get to look at that, inspect that, and approve what they're putting in the ground. So if it doesn't work, we can shut that flow off right there, and they can truck it and take it to Met Council if they want to.
Like the discovery process, though, would there be, we would start seeing chemicals that we wouldn't normally see in domestic? I guess, how would we be
That's my
alerted
concern.
that there
The sampling, that they have to sample on a monthly basis.
Yep.
Is what they're seeing. So if we see anything that we don't like and it follows the parameters of the agreement, we can give them a warning, there's a violation, there's a financial cost to that, and they have to remedy that, or we shut them down until we get it remedied. And if they don't get it remedied, then we close them off completely.
Yep.
So before it comes to us, we'll see what the sample is, and then we'll shut it off. So we'll have basically, for lack of it, so at a lift station, we'll have a pipe coming in there, but there'll also be a valve. So if we don't like what we're seeing, we just close the gate valve. And
But
they
in
have to-
between the sampling, so let's say they sample on the first of the month, all of a sudden later, let's say the fifth, mid-month, we start seeing levels at wastewater of something that we're not expecting or something weird.
If we saw something interesting on the influence side, there's language in it that says we can request additional sampling at any time, so. The idea, it's backwash from an RO system, so generally speaking, it should be pretty mild coming to us. So we figured there's a whole sampling schedule in the agreement. The regular monthly sampling, when we talked with our engineering, both sides were comfortable with that, was enough sampling to keep us up to date as what's coming to us. And, I mean, we have our domestic influence sample, we sample separately. We've collected that data, for years now, and we have general ideas of what BOD and TSS and we normally get. So, if we started seeing some abnormality there, the first step would be go back to them and say, we're noticing something different, we'd like you to collect more often. Why don't you do a weekly sample for these items, and then we'll see if it's coming from you or somebody else.
When we sample, how quickly do we know what the results of those samples are?
Normal testing is within a day or two.
Okay.
If it's in-house stuff, we'll know it in less than an hour. So it just depends on what it is. BODs are 5 days just because they have to grow or incubate essentially, so.
So I understand they'll send approximately 1,200 gallons a day. What is that in comparison to our normal waste?
Normal flow for the facility is around 300,000 gallons a day, so that's a pretty small amount.
Yeah.
Yep, it'll be fairly dilute by that total volume coming in. Yep.
And this is gonna have a separate line to the
It'll-
lift station?
To their lift station, then it'll be blended and come to the plant.
Yep,
And they're installing that?
Correct.
correct.
To our standards with our the equipment that we get to view it and approve it before they bring it in.
Yep.
And the first sampling that they gave us, or the first numbers that they gave us, are different than what we actually landed on, because we told them that we need to know exactly what you're sending us, because if there's a violation, it's not a slap on the wrist violation. There's $1,000 violation to that, and you can see that quite extensively. So we have no intention of giving them a free pass. This is a business model for them, and it could be a revenue stream for us, but we're not gonna put it on our ratepayers at all to bear the burden of this thing. So they knew that going into this. That's why we've gone through 3 iterations of this agreement, because they understand, let's give them exactly what we think we're going to do, and I think we're there. They understand the severity for us, that we're not going to contaminate anything or harm anything at our plant because of this.
How do we get a sample if they haven't built they just broke ground on it? How do we know what it is their discharges gonna
prototypes,
look like?
when they were doing their mock-ups and their prototypes that have been, I believe they've been in service for over a year of what they're doing, they've been able to take that on a smaller scale and ramp it up to what they're going to see here. So we're taking the best data that they have based on that prototype, and we'll have to see it in play.
Okay, so they have prototypes in place out there already?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, much smaller than what we're actually gonna see live scale out here.
And we should maybe clarify, when we say batteries, these aren't nickel cadmium batteries, this isn't those kind of chemicals, this is much different.
Yeah, yeah. As soon as you say batteries, it gets scary.
Still concerns with it, but not as much as some of the other batteries you're talking about, Rick, yeah.
This is for that iron oxide battery, right? Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 24-102, approving the LDS battery sewer agreement with Xcel Energy.
One second.
Motion from Robin, second from Rick. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Kasha 24 Turnback Agreement with Sherburne County, Mr. Knutson.
All right, thank you again. We've been talking about this a few times. We've worked on County Road 53 turnback, which you guys approved a few weeks ago. CASA 24, as it relates to a small section in town, most people forget that it comes actually off Highway 10, so it's the first block of Hancock as we see it, and then Central Avenue down to Sherburne County 23 or CASA 23. That's the section we're talking about. So it's roughly a 3-block section within the city. We were approached by the county several years ago to take 24 all the way out of town, which we declined. But we feel this one makes some sense because it's right in the heart of our city. Also, it gives us an opportunity to improve some parking on the west side of town, which you guys have reviewed. And we've actually put that in our 2025 streets plans in anticipation that this would come to be. So with that, we didn't want them to do any improvements to the street. It's probably the worst section of road in our city, and it's not even ours. So with this agreement tonight, we would agree to take that portion of it back. They would in turn send us a check for $330,000 for that section of road for the improvements. Coincidentally, if we do this in the future, if there's any money involved, it doesn't have to be tied to the specific road. It can be used in kind wherever we want to. In this case, we're saying absolutely we would use it as a funding source for this street and make some parking improvements and look at the pedestrian flow and the bike path and stuff as well. So tonight we're just looking for movement to take this back. With that, we will own any of the maintenance, the snow removal. We have a contingency plan with our streets department right now. If this goes through, how we would take care of that right away, add it into a route. We can do it within our operating budget, so it's not going to be a burden for that. Actually, it'll create some efficiencies because we kind of wrestle with the county a little bit right now in that one block off of Highway 10 in the Hancock area. So we'll be able to create some efficiencies for our teams. They're kind of on the street already right there doing some turning movements, so we feel we can absorb it within our budget right now. So with that, we would look for movement on that and support on that. There's two parts to it. The resolution here would give us approval. The county needs to rescind the CASA portion of that street. It's for how their state aid works with that road. So we would revoke the CASA portion of just that section of the street and then do the turn back on that. Legal has reviewed this and supports how it's written and how we're looking to move forward on this as well. But with that, I can stand for further questions as well.
I see they agreed to more than what we originally had as a proposal.
Yes, when they went through that, what we did is, while we still had SEH, our engineers and surveyors in town, we had them take a look at the street as well, look at the curb. We've also televised, at our cost, we've televised our sanitary and our storm there as well. Everything looks good. And they just had a few call outs on the curb, and we felt it was worth a little bit more than they initially offered. And we'd like to negotiate too. So we sweetened the pot. We anticipate the road improvements will cost a little bit more, but there's a decent amount of curb work and additional parking and stuff like that. But I think right now capturing this is the best bang for the dollar because we feel this is a 30-year street that we'll put down. So it's a really good, taking those funds and putting it in the ground. We'll see some good improvements for a long time in the community.
This will be a reclaim, right?
It'll be likely a full depth reclaim because on the west end, we're pulling a lot of the curb out to add that additional parking over by the existing parking lot.
So we're gonna have to do a lot of curb work or?
Nope. The reason I
Head
fear,
ramps and stuff like that?
there will be, towards 23 potentially, on the other end of town. We may have to do something there. It's all taken into consideration with what we've looked at already. We entertained briefly the thought of the north side, maybe, moving that curb line in and putting a sidewalk out there. I think it's easier to leave it where it's at, otherwise you're gonna more than double the cost of that section. But we could do something if we wanted to, pedestrian-wise or bike path-wise on the north side, if we wanted to do that. I think people share the road right now, but that's a big corridor for connection for pedestrians and bike users. So we'll look at that when we're actually doing the design work for next year's street improvements.
That can be done with, like, any of those paths could be done without,
Right.
it's all within right away.
Right, yeah, we've got the curb lines. If we don't touch the curb lines at all on the north side, we could stripe it differently if we wanted to. If there's, we wanted to dedicate that exclusively to pedestrians and or bikes, we could do that, but we'll entertain that when we look at the plans and specs.
Oh, you're talking down on the actual street, like a bike.
Correct. Not have that separation, not move that curb line. Because if you move the curb line, you gotta move all your catch basins, and you gotta look at where you'd put that side. I mean, it's a lot of work. You'd more than double the project cost, and I don't know that it's worth it, but I think there's enough pedestrians and stuff there that we could take a look at it.
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 24-103 approving the Sherburne County Turnback, section of CSA 24 to the city of Becker.
Second.
Motion from Rick, second from Robin. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Supplemental letter agreement with SEH for 2024 Industrial Park Trunk Utility Study. Mr. Knutson.
Well, we finished phase one of the business park expansion, so, why not take a look at phase two, right? What this really encompasses is, if you look at that, just to get your bearings around that, County Road 53, CSA 8, and Highway 10, that triangle piece that we look at across the road, that would be phase two. It was considered, it was on some of the initial planning, but it was always considered phase two of the possible business park expansion. With some of the recent annexation that's taken place over there, the need to look for services. We've got water close by. We don't have sanitary that would serve some of that property. So we're trying to look at what that would look like. And to do that, this is outside of our professional services agreement with SEH, so we would look to accomplish it through a supplemental letter agreement. So we've got the boundaries of what we're looking to do. The reason we're looking to stay involved with it is because we've got some of the initial work that was done in phase one that would be complementary to phase two, and we can try and keep those costs down as we're looking at this. So we're working with others that are interested parties, property owners over there, and parties involved with that. But we'll stay involved with it so we can coordinate directly with SEH on this work. So it's a pass-through cost to the city, but it would put us in a good position to look at what that property could be used for, how it could be served completely. So again, like the mayor said, looking for movement on resolution 24-104.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 24-104, approving the SLA with SEH for the 2024 industrial utility study,
I'll second.
utility park study.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Administrator and staff reports. The purchase agreement for Outlot B of Sherco's first edition. Mr. Knutson.
The last one I've got, and I'm losing my voice, so I'll try to be quick. As Lori had mentioned, this is the last piece of the phase one business park expansion. The outlot in the XL plat, as it was laid out, was always intended to be dedicated to us. That's why we put our lift station there. And it's kind of a hub of the activities over there, so we need this property. But with everything that was going on, we were just kind of waiting to see, you know, how this thing would play out and when the purchase would come through. So, working with XL Energy, they proposed a purchase agreement back for us. The lot that we're looking at is valued at $190.81. What we did is we used that when Patch and Mesner first came up with the whole study and the valuation study out there for all of the work and the easement work that was done. This was valued a little bit lower because this outlot is located in the wild and scenic area, which has limited use for what can be placed on there. Public utilities is one of them, so we're able to do this, but the overall land valuation was brought down. So that's why you're seeing the cost per square foot or cost per acre versus the lot we bought for the lift station right next to Highway 10 is quite a bit different because of that. So with this, we've worked back and forth with engineering and legal. The purchase agreement that I put in your packet tonight is very close to what's there. There was a couple of language changes needed, and we verified the easement language because XL will retain a transmission line easement or electrical easement. We knew that going into it. There's room there already. We planned for that, so we're good to go. So there was just one change that legal's got. So tonight we're looking for approval on this with the changes that will be proposed by legal, and those will be shared back with XL Energy. Pete Gitson, who's representing XL from their land rights side, is aware of that and is aware of the changes that we're proposing. So there shouldn't be any issues with that should you approve this here tonight. So with that, again, I can stand for any questions. Otherwise, we're looking for movement on this resolution as well.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 24-108, authorizing the purchase of Outlot B in the Sherco First Edition.
I'll second.
Motion from Robin, second from Becky. Any other discussion? Will we see a copy of the new agreement? Okay.
Yep.
Any other discussion? If not, those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Call for public hearing for 2025 fee schedule. Ms. Mortensen.
Madam Mayor, Council, thank you. Tonight I'm bringing forward the request to do a public hearing to change the city's fee schedule for 2025. According to Minnesota statute, we must update fees by ordinance, and then past practice has been that we also have a public hearing to hear that ordinance. So I'm asking for your entertainment of a motion to call for the public hearing on December 17th at 5 p.m.
I'll make a motion to call for a public hearing on December 17th at approximately 5 p.m. to consider changes to Chapter 2, Section 2.19, addressing the city's fee schedule.
Second?
Motion from Becky, second from Rick. Those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Do you want to take us into review of the fee schedule changes?
I will do so, thank you.
Perfect.
So you have in front of you in your packets the 2024 schedule and then the proposed changes for 2025. Some of the changes are just helping us to recover some of those costs of equipment. The first one, the license-related fees, the massage license didn't, when they renewed, and then when we issued the first one, and then when they renewed, those didn't marry very well together. So change those, so that makes sense on both the renewal and the new issuance. Couple of meetings ago, you passed an ordinance for the yard waste site. So we've updated the ordinance, the fee schedule to marry with that. And also change some of that verbiage so it says yard waste and no longer says compost. There hasn't been a fee for a squad car camera So we've added that for $30. There was also, under proper-related fees, you had changed some of the coding for 6-foot-high fences, so we've updated that to marry with the code, and added fee payments for the building permit fee, so that also coincides with the new online process for obtaining building permits. And then all of the utility rates have been changed to reflect what is proposed in the 2025 preliminary enterprise funds budgets. Does anyone have any questions or anything on that?
We got the yard waste violation, which we had talked about.
Right, yep, that was the same as what was in the ordinance. Was it $350? And then also changed the replacement price of the cards to $10 to reflect the increase of cost to obtain those cards on our side. But yeah, every department did a pretty comprehensive review to make sure that any of the changes that had been implemented in the last year for ordinance or code were reflected in the 2025 fee schedule.
All right, I sense no more questions. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Becker Community Center floor replacement, Mr. Gevens.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm back to talk about the community center floor once again. I presented on August 20th, a proposal to remedy the issues that we've been having with the community center floor with the glue seeping up through the laminate. At that time, we did a moisture testing. It was revealed that there is moisture in the floor, and that is one of the issues that was causing the glue problem. Fast forward to today, after we got approval for that project, we started engaging with the vendor that we had approval for, Laser Flooring. At that time, they came to us with a different solution that we could actually, instead of pulling out all the old flooring, scraping all the glue, grinding down to the concrete and putting down a moisture barrier, we could actually, instead of continually to go with laminate, we could switch to carpet, which they assure us will solve our problem with our moisture, because they argue that the laminate is causing the main issue because it's keeping that the moisture and then the glue wet, because it's not able to breathe like carpet. And so they came up with a proposal that they could come in, demo out everything, scrape out all the old glue, and then use a moisture-resistant adhesive to put down the new carpet, and that would alleviate the problem the same as what our original plan was. Staff was encouraged by this because the original plan was just to redo the laminate in front of the front desk in our main lobby and over towards the vending machines by the pool. So just a small square footage for $30,000. And the new quote to carpet the entire facility, so the entire lobby, the spaces I just mentioned, as well as the hallways to the library and down to the locker rooms, so basically all the common spaces, came in at right around $44,000. And we feel like that's a better option because of the reasons why they explained to us with the problems that the laminate was causing. But then we can get away from multiple flooring materials. If we were just patching that one section, we'd have a few different materials that are all of different age, where now we can be consistent throughout the facility. And it just makes it's more cosmetically pleasing, and then it also just makes it easy to maintain because we don't have multiple materials that we're constantly working with, and when we do a full changeover, everything's at the same age. It's not like we would just kind of do it in patches. The other piece to that, the other benefit to that too is, for those of you that come in, we especially this time of year, we have a lot of rugs. And the vendor has told us that this flooring, this newer carpet is in schools and other places, and it's built to withstand salt and material, and it grinds down and you just vacuum things up. It's not, we don't need as gazillion rugs. We don't need rugs outside the pool so people, in case people come out wet. There's just lots of different advantages to just going with this carpet material. And so back again to ask for a motion and a second to engage in laser flooring to finally get that community center floor redone. And I can open it up for any questions at this point.
Do you remember when that flooring area was first done? How long has that?
2020,
Yeah, it's only been a few years.
right
but-
before COVID.
But have you been over there?
Yeah,
It's really bad.
I know. It looks like mold coming out of the,
Yeah. So you won't have to use any throw rugs out there anymore then?
Limited. We have like our branded rugs and stuff. We'll move those more into the vestibule. But limited rugs. And then we'll still keep them in the gym. We'll look to purchase those. We rent a lot of rugs.
That's what I was getting at.
So this will give us a nice savings where,
Yeah.
we needed that before, especially with the glue problem, because they were taking them that were full of glue and washing them and bringing them back. And, so it's, we're ready to be done with the glue. And I'm sure everyone else is as well.
So when they say a life expectancy of 10 years and a lifetime warranty, does that mean
10 years.
they understand the elements? I mean, does that mean that we should not be replacing any carpet for 10 years, even in the heaviest walk areas, like in front of the counter or something like that?
Yep.
Good door?
You can, you could see, and I put as an attachment, they did put kind of a stamp that they will back their recommendation, because I was very sensitive to it, because I was like, we can't switch this. And then I come back again in 3 years, because we have the same, we have problems again with moisture, when it's been identified that we have, they have seen our samples and the moisture testing results, and they're well aware of everything that's happened, and they're putting in writing that they're gonna back up, that they are very, very confident that this is gonna solve our problem, so.
In writing, meaning complete cost? Yeah, I saw it was,
Yeah,
I mean, not just labor, not just carpet, but both?
yep, I was hesitant to come back and do this, because we're changing the plan, and we all don't wanna see the same issue pop up in a short period again, and, they talked me off of that, so, but I told them, I said, we need to have something that verifies this, because this has been an issue, and we can't keep throwing money at this problem, so.
Even if they're using glue to put the carpet down, like we don't have to worry?
Nope.
Okay.
And the other piece to this too is the old plan, the original plan was gonna cause a lot of disruption. We were gonna be grinding in the lobby, a lot of overnight work, a big mess. They're still gonna do a good chunk, especially of the demo work overnight, but disruption time should be much more minimized with this, so.
How are we paying for this?
CIP. We had $50,000 budgeted, so still under CIP budget, but more than what was originally approved back in August.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, to get all the carpet for it, that's
It just made more and more sense as we continually discussed it.
Yeah, I don't know, I mean, a school would take more of a beating, I think, than, I mean, that's a
Right.
pretty active, test sample there, but okay. I don't know, just 10 years of carpet and with salt and everything else, I don't know.
Sounds like you're willing to make a motion.
I am. I'm gonna come back in 10 years just to see. I'll make a motion to approve engaging laser flooring for the completion of the replacement of the community center floor.
I'll second that.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Consent agenda, Mr. LaRude.
Mayor Bertram, city council members, items for consideration on tonight's consent agenda include the revised hiring and termination report, approving the 2025 cannabinoid license renewals, approving the 2025 combination massage business therapist license renewals, adopt resolution 24-101, approving the 2025 city council meeting schedule. And I will be happy to answer any questions.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Motion from Robin, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Payment of the bills.
Make a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
Motion from Robin, second from Rick. Those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Anniversary announcements for the month of December. We have Bart Gevins at our community center, Recreation Service Manager, celebrating 6 years with us. Julie Krenz is our administrative assistant at the community center. She's celebrating 3 years. Jackson Fluke is the assistant kitchen supervisor at the golf course. He's celebrating 2 years with us. And Ian Holmes at the golf course is the pro shop operations coordinator, celebrating 6 years with us. For part-time staff, we have Nadia Fisher, who is a class instructor at the community center, celebrating her 8 years with us. And then we have Deborah McGaffey and Roxanne Pickle. They're both celebrating their first year at the community center as customer service associates. So congratulations to those individuals. And then I will ask council for a motion to recess until 6 p.m. when we can do our truth and taxation meeting.
Make a motion to go into recess till 6 o'clock.
I'll second.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Those in favor can state aye. Aye. We are in recess. I tried. All right, we will go ahead and move into the truth and taxation hearing. So, Mr. Ebensteiner.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. Excited to be here tonight to present the Truth in Taxation, talking about the final approval for the 25 budget and levy. So with that, I'll just lay out the agenda. So I have a presentation prepared for you. Take any council questions, comments, any public comment from residents, questions, comments, and then I'll look for I think I have 3 resolutions prepared related to the levy and the related budgets. So starting off, just to lay the groundwork, high-level budget purpose. So really, this is creating the map for next year. So for 2025, how we're going to deliver our resources to residents. So really, residents are determining, guiding city officials and leaders, what to focus on, how to provide services. Councils providing direction for service levels, establishing those limits through those budget constraints. And then city staff are understanding performance expectations and then monitoring that budget throughout the year and gauging success within there. The timeline we followed, from my perspective, it seems it's a constant cycle. You adopt a budget, you get into the audit process, and it's just a cycle. So it definitely feels like we've been on this path for a while, but we have started back in May. Had some initial workshops, working with staff to prepare budgets, capital improvement plans. Had some check-ins with council in June, July. September, we adopted the preliminary levy, and then we send it to the county before September 30th. In early November, we talked about the enterprise funds. And then residents would have received their truth and taxation notices, summarizing some of the impacts of those preliminary levies for us, the county, township, or I guess school district as well. And then here we are tonight, December 3rd, truth and taxation, public hearing. Once the budget would be approved and the levies, then we'll provide that information to the county for certification and collection in 2025. So really just an overview. We have the expenditure side and the revenues. So really preparing the budget, we're looking at expenses, kind of building it from the ground up, looking at wage changes, some of those pieces. So expenditures on the governmental side, we really break it into the functions, general government, public safety, which here we have police and fire, public works, primarily streets, park and rec, and then EDA. So we really build the expense side, get to a number, and then we look at where our revenues are at, kind of looking at those other sources, intergovernmental, other charges, and then in the end, the tax levy fills that remaining gap. And in the end, the goal is that balanced budget, either a balance with current revenues or a balance of revenues and some reserves in some instances as well. So the next couple slides, I'll just dig a little bit deeper into the expenses and the revenues. Just to set the table there. General fund budget of $7,443,561. So with that, just a reminder, part that we discussed through the budget cycle, we are budgeting to bring the community center fund into the general fund for 2025. Really, the community center fund is a standalone. A lot of other cities bring that into the general fund. It is funded a large part by a tax levy, but then also has another piece which is funded through the fees, membership fees. So with that, we can really bolster up those reserves, and that presentation is more consistent. So it'll just really be a flagship piece of our park system. So it'll be under the culture and rec function within the general fund. And with that, overall general fund expenditure increase of 2%. You see some of the changes there. Really some of the cost drivers there in the overall increase. We did look at the water and sewer utility charges. We had previously not charged ourselves for our water use, but really to make those water and sewer funds whole, we did start charging and for 25 plan to charge for the use. So the general fund will pay back the water and sewer fund for what they use, in essence, paying their fair share there. And then within those buckets, there were some changes. Chris listened over in Public Works and Parks, did a closer look at, as just a reminder, closer look at Public Works staff and how much time they do spend in parks, and really identified that more closely through tracking of time. So we have a larger allocation from Public Works over to Parks now to cover some of that. So in the end, we are a service-oriented business, so inflationary pressures, wages, benefit costs really drive those increases. And then here's just an allocation, always good to look at within the pie, general fund expenses. It's split fairly even. General government, that includes city council, city admin, clerk, finance, 25%. Public safety has our police department, and then our joint powers agreement with fire, and then the fire relief pass-through at 31%. Public works at 18%, and then park and rec at 26%. So this chart, if you look back last year, this chart's a little bit different. That park and rec bucket has gotten a little bit bigger with bringing in culture and rec. So really evened out the pie from there. And on the revenue side, as mentioned, there we dive into, license and permits is a big piece of those other revenues within the general fund, and then look at a lot of those other miscellaneous pieces, and in the end, the tax levy covers the remaining balance. And then on the revenue side, with including the community center, this chart looks a little bit different too. So in the past, taxes had always made up about 90% of our general fund revenues. With bringing in the community center, those charges are upwards of around $750,000. So that charges for services increased from less than 1% up to 10%, and then taxes decreased to about 81%. So as we continue to diversify our tax base, looking at diversification, this chart will continue to change as some of those other revenue sources do change over time. A couple of our other special revenue funds that we do budget for, the EDA fund and the golf fund. So EDA, very consistent with prior year. It did decrease slightly, and that's we'll see it on the revenue side as well on the levy. With our tax capacity and market value decreasing slightly, our max levy decreased there. And then golf is up 3%, and really the non-levy revenue offset the expense side. So the golf course continues strong activity and did see that increase of 3%. So the proposed levy, overall, $10,247,399, an increase of 0.98%. On the general fund side, really they're investing in staff and people services, and then the water and sewer charges. So there is a transition aid line item in there. I have the couple subsequent slides here. I'll go a little bit deeper into there. But in essence, there was electric generation transition aid, which will provide aid as our tax base has transitioned, but I'll dig a little deeper. But that allowed for the decrease in the overall general fund levy of 1.3%. The EDA levy, as I had mentioned, that went down 5.7, so that's tied to our estimated market value, our overall estimated market value, which did decrease. So that's in line with there we attempt to maximize as we look at set aside funds for future development. And then on the other levy side, just a reminder, Pebble Creek, we do not have an operating levy this year again. So a few years ago, we were upwards of 200,000. It was 84,000, and then this is the third year in a row where we have not had an operating levy for the golf course. Debt service levy, that increased from a little over $1 million to 1.522 million. So there we issued the 2024 bonds. We did have $1 million equity contribution, which was levied within our capital fund. So as we transition from 24 to 25, the portion of that $1 million equity contribution or $1 million levy, a portion that was allocated to cover the debt service on the new facility, and then the remaining portion was allocated strategically within our capital improvement plan. So that's where you see a little bit of the movement between debt service and capital. You see the increase and the decrease. But overall, net increase in those other levies, a little under 5%. And then the capital levy, they're decreasing slightly, but still at 2.7 million. There, the focus is really on the streets and infrastructure, but that also covers some of those other admin, IT, police, public works, golf pieces of capital as well. So overall, 0.98% increase, up to 10,247,399. So to expand a little bit on the electric generation transition aid, so there was legislation approved this last year. So the aid is available to local jurisdictions with electric generating units retiring after 2016. So there had been some trend or electric aid in the past that was related to some change in legislation on how they valued properties that the city had received. This is a new aid for related to those that have units that are decommissioning. So to be eligible, your tax capacity of that unit has to be greater than 4% of total tax capacity. For us here at the City of Becker, we're greater than 60%. So check the box there. The aid calculation, this is a very simple, and it is fairly straightforward once you know the variables, but it's really the reduction in your tax capacity times the tax rate in the prior year. So they would take the pay 24 value, pay 25 value, the change in capacity times our rate of last year was 47.15% to get that aid estimate. And then it's a 20-year program, so the aid would decrease 5% each year, and then eliminated when tax capacity recovers to 90% of the prior capacity. Certified in May of the initial year, and then August for the following years. So really, for this city here, for this year one, the state won't certify these values until May. So these are our understanding of the legislation, reading that statute. But an estimated change of 1.2 million times our tax rate, we'd have estimated transition aid of 566,000. But like I mentioned, we won't know that until 2025. And then considering, you'll see on a subsequent slide, our tax capacity has only decreased 5%. So we're already over that 90% hurdle. So we've already recovered. We haven't been impacted more than there. So we will just get the 1 year of aid. So our strategy within the budget was to utilize 250,000 of that aid for the 2025 budget. Help us transition. And then we'll use an additional portion for the 26 budget as we transition as our tax capacity changes. So that was the strategy that went into it. Even the 566,000 that we have estimated, that really is an estimate. So depending on how the state evaluates that legislation and their calculations, we'll know in May what that dollar amount is. That is distributed to cities, much like other aid. We'll receive a portion in July and a portion in December. So it will be kind of a later collection as well when we'll get that. But do not expect to get it for pay 26. That's why we didn't feel it diligent to use the entire transition aid for 25, but to use a portion and then allow additional portion to flow into 26.
When Sherco 1 shuts down, will this whole process start over again then?
Yes. Yep, there'll be a new aid calculation with the different variables, and depending on the severity of that value decommissioning, that would have an impact. So great point, Mike. I mean, these changes are related directly to decommissioning of Unit 2 that occurred at the end of this last fiscal year. Existing debt profile. So as I mentioned, we did issue the 2024 EDA lease revenue bonds. So those are in the blue. We have the 16A taxable GO wastewater. So these are paid by Liberty Paper. There's 2 payments remaining on that bond for 24 and 25. And then the 2021A street, GO reconstruction bonds, street reconstruction. Those are in the gray. Really, the item to mention here, you can see where we have, I think we're right at $13.7 million of bonds currently outstanding. And one way to evaluate this would be legal debt margin. So cities statutorily can't issue debt over 3% of your taxable market value. Our current legal debt limit is right around 40 million. So we're currently at about a third of our total debt capacity is a way to look at it. But otherwise, very healthy there. Have the levies in place to pay those off and have the sufficient reserves set aside as well. Proposed capital levies. So here's breaking apart that line item within the levy chart. Overall, a decrease of 9.4%. Couple items to highlight. Within administration, you see that decrease from 1.1 down to 107,000. That's where we had budgeted for the equity contribution for the facility renovation. We did budget this year for a information technology capital. Just a way to really bring that all together. We also have some budgeted transfers from the enterprise funds to fund their portions of that IT. And then streets, that's where a portion of the admin levy transitioned back to streets, which we had levied there in the past. And then the other portion of that provided support for the debt service levy. And then we did make some small changes to community center and golf as those facilities age. I just wanted to bolster up the capital levies that are set aside for those as well. Levied, so some of the projects, just not all of them, but some of the highlights. So we have a lot of street refurbishment and reconstruction. You know, Phil's already brought the SLA for our 25 streets already now. So great. With that capital streets levy allows us to get ahead of the bidding window and really get some traction on that early. We have some park and trail improvements and life extension. We have the phased building refurbishment over at Public Works that Phil and his staff have been working on. City Hall parking lot here, golf course path restoration, which has been discussed, and community center HVAC, and then a police squad. So that highlights some of the larger items, but really reinforces the value of that capital levy and really keeps replacing and moving forward. So with the levy side, the other factor that really determines our tax rate is tax capacity. So you really have your value and capacity show. So we did have the Board of Appeals equalization held in April. So values are set as of January 2nd of each year. And then as a reminder, taxable market value, that's really the basis for the application. And then net tax capacity is the taxable market value multiplied by the tax rate. For residential property, 1%. For the most part, commercial is right around 2%. So we looked at value changes for payable 25. On the residential side, really 0 to minimal change overall. Commercial industrial, we saw right around that 1 to 2%. There was some outliers in there, but kind of an average in there. And then the utility did decrease 8.4%. So a bigger increase than we've seen, but we did have the decommissioning of Unit 2. So overall, a 5% decrease based on some of the preliminary data that we've got from Sherburne County. So I like this chart, kind of lays the groundwork of how we get to that tax rate. So really it's the total taxes to be generated divided by total tax capacity available to generate those taxes. So the top portion there, the net local levy, increased that 0.98% to 10.247 million. And then our local tax capacity, 2024 was at 21.5 million, decreasing to 20,450,000. That's an estimate. I think Sherburne County is currently at like 20,479,000, but they do make some additional adjustments with some homestead credit and some different things. So a conservative estimate to get to that decrease of 5%. So when you take then the levy divided by the capacity, our rate is expected to increase from 47.15 up to right around 50.110 is the estimate. And then looking at a trend, so taking a lot of those same factors, but looking at a 5-year trend, 21 through 25. The tax capacity is in the light yellow, the tax levy is in the blue, and then the combined total tax rate is the line. So as you can see, slow and steady. You know, the goal is to not have any peaks and valleys with the tax rate. So, you know, in a time where we've had some high inflationary periods, we've had significant decrease in the value related to the decommissioning, and we've been able to maintain a steady tax rate. And we'll continue as we long-term plan, continue to evaluate what some of those assumptions look like moving forward that do impact those factors. And then here, this really drives home on the breakout. So really, for pay 22 through 25, this looks at, so overall tax capacity, whatever that number is, this gives you the percentage of each of the buckets. So for 22, the utility had made up just under 71% of our total tax capacity. Residents made up 18.31, and commercial industrial was 10.7. If we fast forward to pay 25, the utility makes up 62%, residential 23, and other commercial industrial 14.5. So when we talk about transitioning tax capacity, transitioning tax base, that's what we're looking at. So you have your same pie, but some of the who pays a part of that pie is changing over time. So we'll continue to monitor, you know, tax capacity expectations and part of the allocation and impact to the end user. So when we talk about impacts on residential side, just wanted to highlight one of the big items was the change in the homestead market value exclusion. So as many of you have received your truth and taxation statements, you'll see that if your value is within a certain metrics, you would have received an additional homestead exclusion. So prior to this year, the maximum exclusion was $30,400 for properties valued at $76,000, and then it decreased up to $413,800. For payable 25, total available is $38,000, and that starts at $95,000. At 38, you get the full, and then that decreases to zero at $517,200. So the chart below, I won't read each line, but within there, from left to right, with no change in value, you can see the market exclusion increased significantly from that column 2 to column 3, which and then decreased your tax capacity. And then with taxes, with the tax rate going up slightly, that's where you get to some of those changes. So a residential property with no change in value would see somewhere between a 1 to 6% increase in their tax liability for pay 25 related to city taxes. And then here, kind of a trend as well, gives you a snapshot of residential, a sample commercial valued at $7.5 million, and then the utility or the state assessed NSP and Southern Municipal Power. So residential on top, $450,000 home. There, residential increase of $102.89, about $8.57 per month. Commercial increase of $5,169 or 7% increase of $430 per month. And then the utility, there a decrease of 2.4%. But there, I think the highlight here is they make up a little under 63% of our total levy. So for every dollar that we levy, currently the utility still pays just under 63 cents. So a large portion. So as that is transitioning with the decommissioning, we'll continue to monitor that. And then how our residential tax is used. So here's a $350,000 residence annual tax estimate of $1,679, so a monthly amount of about $140. The EDA would be $3.19. Debt service, $20.78. That would pay for the principal and interest on those funds. The capital improvement levy, so all those items we talked about, streets, vehicles, all the different facets, $37.28. And then the general fund operating levy, $78.63. All the general government, public safety, public works, and then the community center as well. All right, so transitioning, really that covered our governmental funds, general fund, EDA, and Gulf. And then transitioning to the enterprise, so this is our water and sewer funds. These are very capital intensive and critical services. Really the focus here is self-supporting funds, which account for fees, charges for, fees and charges, which cover the cost to provide those services. And here really the goal is to provide these services in a cost-effective manner. So as Shannon had mentioned, we do have the proposed rates in the fee schedule. We did a rate study here in 2024 and proposed a 2% rate increase on water usage and a 3% increase on the base service fee charge for next year. And then on the domestic sewer side, we proposed a 5% rate increase on the base sewer usage and tier 2 domestic sewer usage charges for 25. So the 5% for both on that side. So here I'll cover each of the budgets in kind of a higher detail. We really looked at, with the amount of assets that we have in enterprise funds, when you look at just a net operating loss, because we do have some large assets that depreciate. Here we looked at really the impact of fund reserves. So on the water fund side, revenues increasing from 983 up to $1,056,000, about a 7.4% increase. Here, really on the rate change and connection fee assumptions resulted in the revenue expectation increase. And then in the operating expense side, increase from 574 up to 658, 14.7%. Here, utility increases and then wage, including some allocations over some of the administration over to the enterprise fund. And then here, as mentioned, pretty capital intensive. So this year had planned for $706,000 of capital. Next year planned for $477,000. So in the end, next year impact to reserves right around $78,000 increase. And then if you looked at the rate, so the change in our usage rate in 24, a gallon or a dollar would pay for 350 gallons. For 25, a dollar would pay for 342 gallons. So very consistent, up 6 cents per 1,000 gallons from 24 to 25. On the domestic sewer side, revenues there increased from 1.239 up to 1.270, 2.5%. Really, connection fee assumption. There, we had the rate increase of 5%, but we also had budgeted for some leachate revenue in 24 that really didn't come to fruition, if you recall. So we decreased some of those leachate assumptions and then had that 5% rate increase on the other side. And on the expense side, increasing from 818 to 905, really there, the wages and some of the allocations as well. And so in the end, capital spend for next year, $668,580, and some spend down of some of the reserves of $304,098. And fascinating, it does cost more to safely dispose of a gallon of water than it does to provide that. So it does cost, for every dollar, it treats 113 gallons. Looking at the impact of water and sewer rates, so on the minimum side, 24 had a minimum of $34.07. That'll increase to $35.16, so monthly impact of $1.09, an annual impact of $13.13. And then looking at a typical resident, so not necessarily average, but what we see typical user across our population. Water of usage of 8 units, and then sewer usage of around 6 units. So Total last year, 7443, total this year, 7735, so a monthly impact of 292 or an annual impact of $34.99. And then circling back, on the sewer side, we also have the industrial portion, so this deals specifically with LPI and our agreements with them. So there, we did budget for the Tier 1 recovery rate to increase in July of '25. So there you see the increase in revenue up to 768, a 6.5% increase. And then on the expenditure side, they're really just looking at how we budget. I think the biggest thing was how we budgeted for some of the ditch removal. Instead of budgeting for a full one year and none the next, we kind of averaged that out. So we did see a slight decrease in the operating expenses for '25. So do have some significant capital spend, and based on where the agreement's at and some of the reserves we had available, we're looking to spend down some of those reserves in '25 and '26. And then after the debt is paid off in early '26, then there's some other pieces of the agreement that pick up on their responsibility for some of the capital within the fund. And utility fund capital projects, water, the water tower painting and washing of the big tower on the south side of 10, a truck replacement and a backup generator. And then the backup generator is a shared project with domestic sewer. Industrial sewer has a clarifier coating, and then there is a roofing and HVAC replacement that's shared between domestic sewer and industrial. So some really good capital projects planned for some of the facility over there as it continues to age. And with that, kind of wrap it up. Can stand for any questions from council. There's my direct contact information, as well as value questions can be addressed specifically to the county assessor. And then the Board of Appeal for equalization for next year's will be in April of 2025. Otherwise, I guess I'll just take a moment to thank staff. I mean, some of the staff members who contributed immensely to this to the budget are here with us tonight. Many others are not, so really appreciate all of their efforts and appreciate the support of the council and all the engagement throughout the year.
I have a couple comments. Can you maybe pull, are you able to slide through the slides? Yeah. Can you pull up the one on transition aid? Mm-hmm. So this is one that I don't know if it's had a lot of fanfare, but as city taxpayers, I think probably the thing that's always scared us the most is what does post-Sherco look like for us? Mm-hmm. This transition aid is something I know going back to probably at least 2016, if not before, we've been down to the Capitol every year through our Coalition of Cities group. These bills have looked very different throughout the years, but this, I will say it's not in the way that we would like it to be. But this right here, this transition aid is basically a safety net. So as these units retire, that like I said, we all worry about that fiscal cliff. What's going to happen, and this is that safety net which prevents that from happening, basically. So in this case here, it's we're going to get we'll qualify for it this year. I think we're saying there's a good possibility we won't in the next year, but that means that we haven't dropped, there isn't going to be that drop because of that. That's why we're not qualifying for it. So, but I just wanted to highlight this. I don't know that it, when this was through the state legislature, it'll apply to more than just Becker. This is for when our units are retiring, but we're the first city municipality to go through this with a unit retiring. So. So the question that Mike brought up, this is done on a per unit basis. We have 3 units out there. So as the second unit goes off, this will start all over again. And then as the third unit goes off, this will start all, and each one will have kind of their own timeline there. So this is, I guess as we ask that question, this is part of that answer here to say, what have we done, to prevent that fiscal cliff, so to speak. Again, not the way we would really hope for it to be. I don't really like going to the state, you know, asking for transition aid. That's not, I don't like doing it. I don't think anybody liked doing it. But, as, that protection for our taxpayers, that was, something that did come out of the legislature last year. The other piece, we talk about capital, I know we use, you know, the term capital here, and if you're familiar with a lot of other cities, a lot of other cities, when they do capital projects, that usually involves bonding. And so, you know, yeah, like here, like, our capital levy here, in our case, you think of streets, most cities bond for everything, just about everything in their streets, department is bonded for. With the exception of, in 2021, we did a bond out for, Sherburne Avenue South, which is about a $5-6 million road. And the main reason we were bonding for that was because, that road, we were expecting it to, when we do our life expectancies, we were expecting that to go to like 27, 28, something like that. It wasn't gonna make it there, and if we didn't fix it then, instead of being a $5 million road, it was gonna be a $15 million road to have to go back and fix it. When we borrowed that money, we borrowed that at 0.97%. It was like right after COVID, we caught it in that perfect, time to be borrowing money. With the exception of that, every time when we see capital here, that's all with cash. So our street projects, when we see our street projects for next year, you know, we saw a squad car purchase, I mean, all that, that's all with cash. And that is very different than, most cities do that. So we're not straddled with a bunch of debt. And that was one of those things that we, you know, as, current and previous councils, we, did kind of leading up to this, you know, because before, especially we had that, you know, to kind of tie these two together, before we had that safety net bill, I mean, we didn't, you know, we didn't know what it was gonna look like. And so we had front-loaded a lot of projects too. You know, we talk about that $1 million. We had front-loaded a lot of projects, a lot of especially street projects, in this first half of the, decade here, knowing that, you know, we're gonna see some the Sherco retirements in the second half. And so, just kind of tying those together. So, 2 points that I, you know, like I said, I don't like the way how we had to do it in the first one, but this one is one I've always been, proud of, that, City of Becker, pays cash for the vast majority of the, projects that we do, which is, different than most towns do it, where they bond for a lot of, not to say that we won't ever have to, but, that is, something I am proud of, so.
I don't think we have any other questions. We've been reviewing this with you since July.
Just to do it again. It just feels so quick.
Do you open it to public comment, or?
Okay.
Any public comment in regards to the 26 or 25 budget? Okay. Then, Mr. Evansteiner, you're looking for a motion for resolution 24-0. Oh. We didn't
Make a
even
motion
open.
to close the public hearing?
Okay. All right.
So I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
No second.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. All those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
You're closed at 6:40.
Yep, and then I would look for, respectfully request a motion and a second for resolution 24-105 for adopting final governmental fund budget and levy, and then resolution 24-106, final levy for the EDA.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 24-105, adopting the final governmental fund budget and levy for the city of Becker for taxes payable in 2025.
No second.
Motion from Robin, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 24-106, adopting the final levy for the EDA for the city of Becker for taxes payable in 2025.
Second.
Motion from Robin, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
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 Opposed? Carried.
And then the additional, in the other RCA, I have provided a Resolution 24-107, the 25 budget for water, domestic sewer, and industrial sewer funds.
I'll make that motion to adopt Resolution 24-107, adopting the final 2025 budget for the city of Becker, water, domestic sewer, and industrial sewer funds.
Second.
Motion from Robin, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Mark. Thank you to staff for putting that all together as well. Nice presentation. Does council have anything else for the betterment of Becker? If not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second?
Motion from Mike, second from Rick. Those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 6:42 PM.